A beautiful Friday morning and a good day to touch down the week and wrap up all of the happenings around the country and indeed around the world with your perfect morning starter right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka, and of course, one half of the goon is here.
Yeah,
I would miss Kayode so much.
Hey, we're back next week. Thank you so much for being part of the program. As always, it's the Friday edition, and of course, we'll bring you up to speed, binging through the big happenings in the polity, whether it's politics, the security, the soft side of things like the creative sector. We have you covered. That's what we do right here. So wish you a happy weekend ahead of time. But hey, Bukola, what are you tracking?
Well, interesting developments, as particularly having to do with security and having to do also with the rising cost of food. If you saw that meeting yesterday between the Nigerian Governors Forum, amongst them rather, after which they issued a communique saying that they're willing to work with the federal government to harmonize taxes and levies to bring down the cost of food, and particularly blaming it on illegal checkpoints across the country. And I'm just wondering, interesting development, but the advocacy, for a review of the high cost of commodities had been on since the onset of this administration. Even the Presidential Committee on Tax Reforms had identified that as a huge factor, affecting the rather high cost of food since the beginning of this administration. Why the deliberate and intentional approach to addressing it is coming now is something that we may need to interrogate and find out indeed what are the deliberate steps that will be taken by the different state police commands and the police force at the federal level to dismantle those illegal checkpoints, while at the same time rather ensuring that there is security on those very important highways, some of which more often than not kidnapping also takes place. And we must also high point the meeting between security chiefs, during which the NSA and another security chief came out yesterday without addressing the press. Of course, it's normal practice, for security chiefs to come out and sometimes choose not to say much. But we will be watching that space very closely in relation to our security agents, how well equipped they are from this point, and the results that they're able to achieve in the borders and in those in the hinterland, particularly where banditry and insurgency takes place. I wonder how you're weighing in on similar issues or different issues, Jeffrey.
Well, for me today, I don't want to just weigh in on national issues. I want to be a little bit of a motivational speaker.
It's a Friday, right?
Yeah, just to take things easy. For me, I just feel that if you are, quote, I don't like using the word, if you're poor or you believe that you're poor, I mean materially you don't have so much resources, do the best you can. Work hard within the legitimacy of the law, within all legal means, to make sure that you upscale your streams of income. Because I just thought through a lot of things yesterday, and I realized, Bukola, the poor is always the victim. The poor is always the victim. There's nothing that will be done in terms of policy direction that will affect the rich that much like it will affect the poor. So let's take an example. PMS subsidy that was there. It was helping both the poor and the rich. But some of the rich or people in that space were taking advantage of the system, gaming the system. Sometimes they don't supply anything to Nigeria, and they collected money. And Nigeria was struggling with a huge wage bill. So on one hand, we don't have money. On the other hand, people are gaming the system. So what did the government do? They removed subsidy. Now, fuel is where it is. Where it was over 1,000, less than 1,000 right now. The rich is still going on. What has happened to the poor? The poor is always the victim. If you talk about FX exchange, the exchange rate, no matter how you look at it, medication at least is how that helps the poor people when it comes to when government was subsidizing FX. Well, there was an arbitrage rent-seeking system where people were just making money without any form of enterprises. The government said, no, there cannot be multiple windows. We harmonized all of the windows, and now this is where it is. It has stabilized at 1,500 plus, and everything has gone up to that effect. Well, the rich will go on somehow, but it has affected the poor. Yet again, if you talk about electricity subsidy, I used to spend 100,000 naira that would take me for about 3 months. Now 100,000 naira worth of electricity, we struggle. We had to manage it so for it to take us for, let's say, 1 month. Now, if you don't have a bit of means, slight bit of, just a minimum bit of means, how can the poor person afford 100,000 naira electricity for a month when minimum wage is 70,000 naira? So I just reel through all of this, that no matter the economic policy, no matter how well intended it is always the poor that will be the victim. So my advice this morning, don't be poor. Do everything within every legal thing to make sure that even if things get worse, you can survive for a bit before it gets better. Kola, that's why I say I want to be a motivational speaker this morning.
I think I'm going to enlist in your Wealth Creation 101 class. Dokadi and I have been talking about this for such a long time.
Yeah, it's not just about wealth creation or so somebody has. So I just realized that no matter what happens, the poor will always have the short end of the stick. No matter what happens. The rich, the middle class, whether it's low or high or whatever, will look for a way somehow to get by before it gets better. There's some level of sustenance before it gets worse. But for the poor, the shock is quick and sometimes fatal. So get out of that space.
Indeed, and you know, the most valid and very inspiring stories come from the very unusual areas. So no matter where you're from in Nigeria today, your dreams are valid, so you can pursue them. But beyond the dreams, what are the current realities from this point? Speaking of which, what do we have for you today? We'll continue reflecting on issues bedeviling the polity, particularly coming off of the heels of the president's visit to Benue State and his address of issues of insecurity in Benue yesterday. So we'll review the outcomes of his visit, as well as rumors of plans to drop the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, from the 2027 presidential race. The party will be on the program today as the representative of the party, that's the ruling party, All Progressives Congress, to address these issues. Yes,
exactly. We'll also talk about election management and the fate of democracy. There's been a lot of talk around INEC. INEC has responded. People that want to form political parties are accusing INEC of being, you know, some accomplice in ensuring that doesn't happen. INEC has said there are rules to this game. And, well, INEC hasn't spoken officially afterward, but they've made some statement as to the guidelines on how this works. We're going to look at democracy. We're going to look at election management and the fate of free, fair, credible election on the program.
And that's not all. We'll also visit or revisit River State, from the state of emergency entering its 3rd month to a non-indigene being nominated to head the State Independent Electoral Commission. We, head over to Rivers to discuss the seemingly constant political drama in the state.
Okay, so exactly, those are the things we'll be talking about on the program today. So in Bukola's words, I don't like, it's packed. And again, just remember that we have our channels. You can get us, bring that feedback, send us feedback, I should say, whether it's WhatsApp, email, or even hashtag CTV Morning Brief on X. And we have a question that we want to ask you. So when the president visited, he announced 2 days ahead and visited and came back. There were a lot of reactions. He's going to be part of our conversation. Do you think the president's visit to Benue State has actually lightened the burden on the hearts of the people of Benue? That's the question. Do you think that the president's visit and his remarks in Benue State has lightened their hearts or their burden after that visit in Benue State? That's a question you will have to answer sincerely. So all our channels, feedback channels, is up for you to get back to us so that we can amplify your voice right here on the program. And we have our poll system where we tell you the percentage of people or the number of people that said yes, that, and all of that, depending on the set of questions. But we'll take just a moment.
Jeffrey, don't forget to also be spotlighting the change of guard at the Directors Guild of Nigeria also today on the program.
Hopefully.
So we'll have the new boss at the Director Guilds of Nigeria later on the show today.
All right, so let's get to the papers. What the dailies are saying in just a moment. We'll be right back. All right, let's get to the Vanguard newspaper. Vanguard is leading with the issues around insecurity. Benue massacre, troops got wrong intel on attackers' movements. Benue massacre, troops got wrong intel on attackers' movement. Survivors cry out over poor feeding, living condition. So if you want to find out details of this, you can go to page 7 of the Vanguard newspaper. What is the intel that the military got that was a wrong intel on the movement of these attackers? So we're beginning to hear things that we've not heard before, and we want to continue to hear those things because it looks like the president has a brief that all of us are not familiar with. When you listen to what the Tortive told the president, he majored on the fact that this is genocidal invasion by a set of people who are being on the mission to grab their land and chase them out of their spaces. But the president was speaking more of a communal clash and herder-farmer clashes. Well, experts have said that it may be some of the factors, but it's not a major factor here. But we don't know why the president majored on it. So we're beginning to see conversations or remarks in that sense. Benue massacre, troops got wrong intel on attackers' movement. So if you want to find out the detail of this, just go to the Vanguard newspaper, page 7.
And you may, if you wish to, interrogate the troops' position or the CDS's position on this one. You know, there were attacks in Akpa local government area of Benue. There were attacks in Gwe West, Guma local government area of So what happened to intelligence, you know, for those attacks? Cumulatively, we may be counting the death toll in Benue State since the beginning of this year, you know, hovering well above 500 in the last 6 months. So what happened to intelligence before those attacks took place? We must move away from the place where we continually make excuses for the failure of security, which is the primary duty of government, to deliberate actions and steps that actually secures arrest, prosecution, and, you know, jailing of those who are behind these heinous attacks. But let's go to this Nigeria newspaper this morning. This Nigeria newspaper also looks at that meeting that we earlier highlighted amongst the Nigerian Governors Forum. Listen to the headlines. Food inflation, state governors. Okay, we'll take another paper and wait for this Nigerian newspaper perhaps to come on later on. Let's go to the Guardian newspaper this morning. And the Guardian newspaper also looks at the issue of security. Take a look at the big story. Violent attacks, peacetime killings, question value of Nigerian life. It's a big story, and this appears to be exclusive to the Guardian newspaper. And you find details on the inside pages, 4 and 5 to be precise. So what exclusive, what are the details different from what we already know that Guardian you know, wants to highlight? You may want to pick up a copy and read, but there are other stories, of course, that you can also you know, chew on from the Guardian this morning. Listen to this. IBAS, that's the sole administrator, alleges sabotage at budget defense as Senate reiterates democratic rule. You find details on page 29 of the Guardian newspaper. There are other stories from the front page, but let's take a look at another paper this morning. Jeffrey.
Just beneath that, just staying with the Guardian again, Tinubu inaugurates specialist hospital named after him in Kaduna. This naming of places after sitting presidents is just a very, it's almost more like a political epidemic. It's just sad.
Some would describe it as a prospering of the trade of sycophancy under this administration.
I don't think the president, without holding brief for him, goes around saying name it after him. So all of these people who feel that they want to please the president, why I'm not big on it, for instance, is the fact that another president can come, or another leader of that state can come and change the name. For instance, I did not see any reason why you name the nation's international conference center. We go to Kigali International Conference Center and all these conference centers. You know, it's not as if you can't name things. That it wasn't even built by the president. It was renovated under his administration. And then he named it Tinubu International Conference Center. What exactly is this? What happens to Nigerian International Conference Center?
You have to secure your second term in office.
You can't be scoring yourself. That's why I'm saying I don't think he goes around saying, what are you going to name after me? But in fact, there's a paper, one of the dailies that did a rundown of all the things that have been named after the president, including an army barracks or so, I think in Abuja. Is it a command center? There's even a command center called Batik. I think that was under the Ministry of Interior. I've forgotten where it is now. What exactly is this?
And suffice it to say that things like this that promote that strongman politics, that holds sway in our democracy, and which is contrary to the value of democracy, really, because the biggest virtue or value of democracy, if you like, is representation, is allowing voices, especially of the people, those at the lowest rung of the ladder, to be highlighted, and not necessarily the promotion of the elite, the interest of the elite. So this promotes strongman politics, which we do not really need. And the president, in fairness to him, also needs those who will speak truth about the reality of things, in the administration, and not necessarily hide on the sycophancy, just to, curry his favor or get his interests. So we must, highlight these issues at this point in time and call for practical steps to moving Nigeria forward beyond naming monuments and institutions after
it's just a political sycophancy and epidemic all over the place. It's, this imperialist mentality of our political class and all of that. But sometimes I feel for the president, because you can imagine how many people go to lie to him. He can't be everywhere anyway. But on the issue of naming things after the president, I think it should stop. It should stop. When he's done with his, whether 4 years or 8 years, whoever comes can see, oh, this man did this fantastic job, and can name things after him. Not, anyway. Let's go to New Telegraph. New Telegraph newspaper. It said, breaches. This is very alarming, Bukola. Global scare as 16 billion Apple, Google, other passwords exposed. Breaches. Global scare as 16 billion Apple, Google, other passwords exposed. The writer says experts say records likely compiled by cyber criminals or white hat hackers. So you can find out what a white hat hacker is. Advise immediate change of countersign. Two-factor authentication. I'm happy I have a two-factor authentication. So this is a clear advice. If you have anything that has to do with Apple and Google, most of us have these emails attached to Google one way or the other. Page 2 is how you can get the details of this. This is a very scary situation. So I know some of you save some of your other passwords inside your email. So this is where it becomes very technical and very funny. In fact, so some of us, some people even use Google as password, your email to access certain apps and all of that. So if you're not worried, I'm telling you why you should be worried. But what you can do has always been given as advice. Two-factor authentication is in everybody's phone. You can download it on any of the stores, if you will, so that you're not a victim of maybe cyber fraud or anybody using your name or email to commit any crime. That number is very scary, because that's 16 billion. The entire world, I think we're about 7 or 8 billion. So 16 billion passwords compromised, or not compromised, exposed by these hackers. That is the suspicion.
And we have addressed this as much as possible on the program. So you just may want to go back to our YouTube channel, Channels Television's YouTube channel, and watch our Pacific segments.
All our techies
have pretty much giving us a world of education as far as the use of your devices are concerned. So, well, a good high points there from New Telegraph.
Okay, Bukola, you have the next one. Do we have this Nigeria ready yet?
Okay.
Okay, so those are the papers we're looking at the moment. But if we had this Nigeria, it actually was leading with that food inflation issue. And we've talked about this over and over. So we're super excited that the governors are beginning to come to terms. In fact, the president took a swipe at NEC when he was in Benue State, and he said to them, "What are you doing in NEC?" Well, whether that was some level of wake-up call, I do not know. But it's good, and the tax reform policy is one of the good policies of this government. It has its own areas and things like that, but there are so many positives. If you take your time to read the bills, 4 of them in total, is going to help one way or the other. It's not a perfect document. We could see the flaws, but there's a lot of good things that we're expecting the president to sign that in the next maybe 2 weeks or more, so that it comes into effect, and it's going to be gradual, some of the things that will be coming into effect. But one of the things that we've also been worried about is all of these guys you see on the road, from garage to everywhere you live. I'm speaking as somebody who lives in Lagos. I don't know where you live in Nigeria, but I'm sure you have these quote-unquote transport union people or area boys, I'm not sure what to call them, who collect taxes from articulated vehicles. If we take those guys out of the road, look for another way to employ them or engage them, trust me, it will affect the price of food and by extension, help reduce inflation. So this is a good move from the governors, because the conversation has always been, they've been accused of using these people for political reasons during political seasons and all of that. So they don't have the boldness to face them and say, guys, get out of the way. So if now they have now decided to say, okay, it is time for these guys to get out of the way, because what you're doing is contributing to the prices of products or food, especially food, I think is a good move.
You know, Jeffrey, I recall that the Presidential Committee on Tax Reforms had identified about 400 illegal taxes, you know, that food, you know, operators, you know, those trucks, drivers, that they have to pay, you know, along the agricultural value chain before the food eventually gets to the market where you purchase them. And imagine if the price of a commodity, you know, from the farm, fresh from the farm, were 1,000 naira, if you add those other 400 taxes, you know, on the price of that food, how much it will amount to, you know. So that's why this development, though coming late, is welcome. But what are the steps? We must ask again that what are the steps that will be deployed to ensure, you know, that those bottlenecks are eliminated, you know, such that we can begin to indeed witness a reduction, significant reduction in the price of commodities. And this is, you know, should be high pointed, particularly against the emerging narratives that under this administration, the price of food staples has come down by 40%. Nothing could be further from the truth, at least if we're all going to the same market. But we'll also be reflecting on other issues as we begin our very next segment on the program today. Don't forget our question of the day. Has the president's eventual visit to Benue State done anything to lighten the burden of Benue residents as far as security is concerned? You can respond to these questions on our WhatsApp channel, through our email, and of course, hashtag CTV Morning Brief. Let's take a break now. When we return, we'll begin a very big conversation on the state of the nation. And we have the National Secretary of the All Progressives Congress ready to respond to all of those concerns. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Welcome back to the program, and let's get to the very first conversation on the state of our nation. Ajibola Basiru is the National Secretary of the All Progressives Congress. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Good morning, sir, and thank you for coming on the program.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, pretty good. So let's get started with the immediate that has to do with the visit of the president. I'm not sure, I think whether I saw you or I'm not sure. Maybe you can help me with that, whether you were there or not. But the president has visited Benue State, and there are so many reactions that have thrilled that visit. Some have said it was quite tactical. He spoke as he should speak as president. Some are saying he's quite underwhelming, some of the actions that were supposed to be taken. Some have said some of the things he said could have been said. Maybe even without going to Benue. Some are saying he shouldn't have even gone to Benue because the impact is not felt. There are so many narration as far as this is concerned. But the bigger point of controversy, which we have been probing, seems to be the characterization of what the key driver, because there are a couple of drivers of that conflict, or of that crisis we're facing in Benue at the moment. But before we talk about the characterization, what's your take on the president's visit to Benue? Do you think that his action from where you sit is going to bring the level of succor that we expect in the coming weeks or days or months?
Yeah, good morning. Yes, I was not in Benue, I was not in Makurdi, I was in Oka for another equally important assignment on behalf of our party. And but the leadership of our party, headed by Dr. Abdullahi Umaru Ganduje, was there on a condolence visit, and also, of course, part of the entourage of the president. Be that as it may, just as you have said, you said there are different perspectives as to the relevance, the value, and of course the necessity of Mr. President visiting Makurdi. Of course, when you have a country allegedly of about 180 or 200 million, and you have a democratic setting, you are bound to have heterogeneity of idea and diversity of perspective. So definitely people are bound to have different perspective. But as far as Mr. President is concerned, and his handlers, it is felt that it is important for him to be on the spot of the dastardly incident that occurred in Makurdi, and that has become particularly perennial. And he did not just go there on condolence visit, it's also part of fact-finding visit. Apart from the public engagement, which was beamed live on national television, the president also had the opportunity of speaking outside the camera to some of the key stakeholders in the Benue state. And of course, you cannot be able to extract the value of those visits and the conversation until you begin to see the change, particularly in the modus operandi of the military operatives, and of course in the non-kinetic element in being able to tackle the crisis. I don't have power of clairvoyance. I'm a prophet, I'm a lawyer and a politician, so I cannot say that this is what's going to happen tomorrow or next day. But I know that that important signal, the importance that Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu attached to security of life and property, and he made that very clear in his statement to say that the life of the people is particularly more precious than cows.
Addressing that particular factor of his visit, which is the most important really, the life of the people. We have had cause to interact with people from Benue State in the last week or so, and we processed the president's visit and his address through them, and they said there was a disconnect between his address and the appeal, the passionate appeal by the tortive, which pretty much captured the reality of what exactly is happening. But still, the president doubled down on the need for peace, and in fact said that land should be made available, that there will be ranching. So they're identifying a disconnect in the president's position after the tortive's address. And they're saying, is the president appealing to northern elements? I'd like you to answer that.
You see, as far as I'm concerned, I told you democracy is about diversity of perspective, some of those people who thought there was a disconnect between the president's address and what was on ground have expressed their own perspective. As far as some of us are concerned, the fact that the president gave opportunity for Tortif to give the address, which now the same commentators are saying is resonate with the concern of the moment, as vindicated and also validated the fact that a platform was created by the visit of the president to have a different perspective as to the issue about what is happening in Benue State. And as to people who try to create a division in Nigeria by saying the president is pandering to a northern element or a southern element. As far as we are concerned, the president is a Nigerian, is a detribalized I'm a Nigerian, and he has been able to come on the spot in Makurdi to be able to address the concern about the life and property of the Nigerian people. And of course, in his preference, the life of the people is far more precious than issue of property, which cow may signify, and that says it. And as a state person, you don't, as the statesman, you don't expect the president to be taking side with anybody in the conflict. He's supposed to have a dispassionate consideration of the issue and then be able to charge the necessary state actors to address the various challenges.
Mr. Basiru, the reason why we're staying on this question is just like one of the last remarks of the Tortif. He said if you misdiagnose, the treatment that will be given will be a wrong one, which is where we're talking about that mismatch. It looks like defective characterization. So the president did a lot of political housekeeping, speaking to the governor, speaking to the political class, calling for peace and all of that. But resonating in that hall and outside that hall is to the effect that this is an unprovoked attack. The intent is clear. We had conversation even yesterday with some of the people. And then just about 5 minutes or so in that conversation, the president now started asking, why has no arrest been made? And that is literally unacceptable, because the president, the incident that happened on Sunday, because of that, the president rescheduled his visit to Kaduna that was meant to be on Wednesday to Thursday, so that he can be in Benue on Wednesday. So there were like 3 days, and president to come on camera and asking the IGP why hasn't the president gets briefing every day. So is it that the president did not know that the arrest has not been made? So these are things that people are asking. That's on one hand I want you to respond to. On the other hand, the president spoke to the people who are the victims. He spoke to the political class in the state. He also spoke to the security forces to go after the killers, but nothing really seriously giving a strong statement to whoever is this terrorist or bandit that are killing people. That is why people are concerned and saying it's pandering.
I don't know what you want the president to do. And as well, with respect to you, you have your text to your opinion, and you express to distinct
Mr. Basiru, just a moment, sir. It's not an opinion.
But I want to say, please let me, you had opportunity.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Basiru, but just get the point.
If you want me to talk, let me possibly leave your studio so that you can be able to do all the conversation. You spoke for about 3-4 minutes without interjection, and I've not spoken for 40 seconds, and you're already interjecting me.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
If this is meant to be an interrogation, you may as well maybe set up a courtroom setting. But it is meant to be an interview for us to express our opinion, which may well, because of democratic license, be different. Then you allow me express my opinion. But if you have already formed a rigid opinion to castigate the president and castigate the administration, you may as well excuse me from this conversation, please.
Please go ahead with your response, Mr. Basiru.
My response to you is that people have different perspective and interpretation of situations. And the fact that the president was in Makurdi and was able to allow different perspective to come up to be able to interrogate what has happened in Benue State. And he did not only go there, on the spot in Benue was also people who are critical to be able to resolve that political and security situation. You have on ground the National Security Advisor, you have the IGP of police, you have the Chief of Defense Staff, and as well as all paraphernalia of Nigerian army security. If that will not suffice to show the seriousness and commitment of the president to addressing that very serious issue and assembling political actors, assembling religious organizations, for me, if it is about fault finding, there's nothing anybody can do. If the only thing you can surmise from the visit of the president is to have an array of criticism and not see the other side of it, then there's nobody I can help you in that regard, with respect.
Well, Mr. Basiru, this certainly is not about fault finding. It's an aggregation of thoughts, of the pulse of the people from Benue State. It's a testy conversation, but difficult conversations must be had in order to reflect all sides. And that's why I'm going to stay with Benue State for a bit. Some of the concerns coming through also is the fact that the president did not visit Yelwata community, and that, you know, the weather was certainly not an excuse for the president not to have visited, because when politicians want to achieve anything, they go all out to do it. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, asking for arrests, asking whether arrests have been made or not in public, they say will necessarily not address the matter, because we had the governor here some days before the president's visit, and he said he had spoken with the president, and he had in fact briefed the president, and they were asking for directives for retooling of the security agencies and in fact shoring up of manpower in the military. These are the concerns that we're putting through to you this morning, and we want you to respond to them.
I can't respond for that with what I've stated, and you can as well come up with your own litany of excuse as the basis upon where it is not necessary for the president, and absolute futility of the effort that the president is actually making in that regard. I think that I'm done with issue of the Benue visit of the president, and I don't have anything to say. And as I've told you from the beginning of this conversation, we're in a democracy. People are entitled to have different opinion and different perspective, and the fact that you have a different opinion and different perspective does not mean that your own perspective is the entire truism.
All right, Mr. Basiru, the reason why we're staying, well, it's unfortunate that you don't want to talk about Benue. We should talk about security.
You want me to agree with you? And I've told you that
Mr. Basiru,
I don't agree with you. So if it is about agreeing with you, then you will as well put word into the mouth to agree with you. I've said that you are entitled to your view, and I'm entitled to my perspective about the utility and the value of the president visit. And that should put pay to it. If you want somebody else to express an opinion that lies with your own, you can come the person to the studio to come and do so, with respect to you.
Mr. Basiru, you're getting it all wrong.
I'm entitled to my view.
It's not
in a democratic
if you can at least allow me to speak, Mr. Basiru. You're getting, it's a conversation. We're having an engagement about the state of our nation. That's what is supposed to be scrolling on the screen.
And I've told you
my
hold
perspective.
On, Mr. Basiru. Just hold on. Your own perspective on my own, please.
Just hold on. If we're asking questions, the primary, you are a lawyer, a senior one at that matter. Even an attorney general.
You are not asking questions.
I'm not expressing an opinion. I'm relaying to you.
Hold on. I have a PhD in law, and
Mr. Basiru, I'm expressing to you some of the
I'm Dr. Basiru, please. My correct title is Dr. Basiru, please.
Which one is more important? Now, is it the title or the okay, Dr. Basiru, so that you can respond to me.
Yes, please.
I am saying to you.
I said I'm not responding to you on Benue again. I've expressed my opinion, and you are entitled to your own opinion.
That is the mistake. We're going to move on.
Then you don't have any business being here. You may as well excuse me from your studio.
We're going to move on from Benue, but I wanted to bring to your attention that the primary responsibility of the government is the protection of lives and property. And when we bring questions to you, this is things we have aggregated from the people, things you have even seen for yourself, and saying that this is an opinion is very unfortunate. Anyway, since you don't want to respond, I'm not going to push you beyond that out of respect for my guests. But let's go on to other issues. But that's quite unfortunate, because that is the main thing we should be talking about.
It's also unfortunate that you cannot know a difference between opinion and a factual statement.
Well,
so that's my
I know exactly, Mr. Basiru.
If you cannot make a decision between opinion and fact, you say you aggregated what you are saying from certain concerns. And of course, I want to ask you, what is the sample size of your opinion? How many Benue people have you spoken to? You cannot sit down and try to ram a perspective and an opinion.
Well, I don't know, Mr. Basiru. Can we move on? I don't know what you're talking. Can we move on now? Can we move on?
I'm still correcting you that I'm Dr. Basiru, please.
Okay, Dr. Basiru.
I had a PhD, and that it's not titular. So I'm Dr. Basiru.
So let's not deflect on the issue, Dr. Basiru. So in case I forget...
I'm not deflecting.
Let's not deflect on this.
But it's very important for you to appropriately address me on the national television. I do not earn a PhD by honorary. I'm a doctor. So when you want to address me, you say Dr. Basiru, please.
All right, Dr. Basiru, we need to calm down. So can we move on now?
Thank you. I'm not in any way.
All right. All right, fantastic.
I'm not in any way.
We're not fighting. We're going to have a conversation again. It's not war.
But you can't ram,
so let's talk about
on me.
Let's talk about what played out in Gombe State, Dr. Basiru. So if I mistakenly say Mr., just forgive me. I hope you understand. So let's go to what played out in Gombe State. And in Gombe State, there were issues about endorsing the vice president as well as it's been done for the president. And that caused almost a very physical situation where there was almost an assault, what we learned. First and foremost, I wanted to find out from you, Dr. Basiru, has that issue been brought to rest from where you sit?
As far as I'm concerned, there was no issue. I was physically present in Gombe State, and after the summit, we had a reception at the government house. So if the whole thing is about looking for issues where there are none, I don't have anything to say. The summit was the summit of the Eastern people, and just as I've said, there are people in a democratic setting are bound to have different opinions. Some people in the Northeast felt that it sufficed to give endorsement to the president, and the president would then be in a position to decide who will be his running mate in 2027. Some other people are of the view that it is also important, since the summit is being held in the Northeast, that the vice president coming from the Northeast should equally have an endorsement. But what I know is that even at the national convention, where candidates for president, the candidate for president election will emerge, it's only the president candidate that will emerge at the convention. Then the running mate issue will be done after that. As far as our party is concerned, and that's where we have not made any statement or get ourselves involved in the politics of the Northeast. As far as we are concerned, the national summit held in the presidential villa has endorsed Mr. President based on his track record, and a large spectrum of stakeholders in our party have also overwhelmingly given endorsement to Mr. President. The question of running mate is not yet on board, and nobody has come here to say that president has made any adverse decision as regard the present president. So it's not an issue as far as we are concerned.
But you know, some of the time there is no smoke without fire. Prior to this time, there had been reports that there were plans by the party to drop the vice president in the 2027 presidential election due to the need for realignment to better position the party to win the election in the north. There is no clarity on where the VP slot will be zoned to. But I want you to speak to that, and also to the VP of the party Northeast doubling down on the fact that it's the president that reserves the right to pick his vice president, which is also fielding this particular rumor.
On a lighter note, Bukola, in the world of science, there can be smoke without fire. So, as far as we are concerned,
but you know what I mean,
has no basis and will not detract from the work of the party in mobilizing and galvanizing Nigeria towards total victory in the 2027 general election. The question that is on board now is about the track record of the renewal agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and that has been laid to rest in the national summit, where all the key stakeholders are participated, where overwhelmingly endorsements have been given to Mr. President. The question of the running mate may as well be what galvanize some people to begin to speculate of imaginary crisis within the APC. If APC is a strong, united and cohesive political organization, and we will not be distracted by such baseless speculation.
But, sir, can the party afford to risk the block of votes that can come from the Northeast? And, you know, just to support that, there were reports that there was a deliberate action to get supporters of the vice president to that venue that day, and they came in a number of buses. So can the party afford to risk the block of votes that will come from the Northeast? If you consider how much votes the party won in the 2023 presidential election from the Northeast.
I think you are stepping your question with an assumption that a decision has been taken that the vice president will not come from the Northeast, and that the vice president will not be Senator Kashim Shettima. I said that has not happened, so I will not engage in hypothetical and academic question as to whether the party is considering moving the vice presidency from the Northeast. It's hypothetical and quite speculative, and I will not engage in that conversation for now.
All right, Dr. Basiru. So let's talk about, I want to bring two things in one. One, this is politics. Anything is possible in politics. You've been in this game for a very long time. So would you say that the party is not worried about the triggers they saw with what played out in Gombe State? That's on one hand. On the other hand, there's a coalition lurking around. I don't know how far they will go. I don't know how successful that coalition will end up. Is the party also not worried about that coalition? So two questions in one.
I think I've said that there's no necessity to have any issue about what happened in Gombe. I told you we had, on the lighter note, Santos Mill after the summit in Gombe before we flew down back to our respective locations. So, but of course, it gives a very good opportunity for people who are wanting to think that there will be crisis within the APC to be able to feast on such kind of minor disagreement. On the issue of coalition, I'm a student of political science. I don't know whether there's any such thing as coalition in a presidential system that we have. It's either people want to march into new political party, or they want to form new political party to face the APC. But to talk about coalition, I don't know. I stand to be corrected by people who are more experienced in political science and political aggregation than me. How will a coalition work? Is it that PDP, SDP, ADC, as other party want to be on the same ticket, which is not possible under the present arrangement, or is it they are considering merger? So I would say that the whole sloganeering about coalition are mere question of sloganeering, which has no basis in political reality that we have. Quite apart from that, the talk about the sloganeering about coalition is an ambition that the so-called leading opposition party have shown and have admitted that they have failed as political machinery capable of governing victory for themselves in 2027 election. Rather than wasting our time and losing sleep over whatever sloganeering anybody is doing, we are committed to continue to strengthen our party, deepen our practices, and ensuring that we reach across to the nook and crannies of Nigeria with the Renew Hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu ahead of the 2027 general election.
Just before we let you go, Dr. Bashir, let's go to Osun State for a moment. Both sides, that's the APC and the PDP, are giving different interpretations to the latest Court of Appeal decision to disallow the APC from relisting its case in the local government election from 2022, I believe. This is reminiscent of what happened a few months back. But the bigger consequence of this is the stronghold over the leadership of the local government councils in Osun State. Isn't the party worried? And in fact, there are reports that the PDP is contending the withholding of local government funds from the local governments in Osun State. Isn't the party worried about administration at the grassroots, which is really lacking and is in fact affecting workers in Osun?
Yes, we are worried, but Adeleke PDP government in Osun is a government of impunity, and there is really no need for any controversy about the latest judgment of the Court of Appeal in Akure. The judgment merely refused to release an appeal against a federal court decisions in the APP matter. But there was a judgment, February 10, of the same Court of Appeal, which dismissed the case of the People's Democratic Party on the same facts and on the same law. So as far as we are concerned, the February 10 judgment is a judgment of the Court of Appeal, which stated that the challenge to the election of our chairmen and councillors was in futility, and to that extent, they are the rightful person to be in office. But rather than pursuing the issue legally. You can recollect that Adeleke administration set non-state actors against our functionaries that led to the death of Remi Abbas, the chairman of the local government in Irewole local government, and many other of our members were also maimed. The government of Adeleke is very steeped in impunity. What he has also done was to collude with the Norgay and workers in the local government administration to refuse to work on the basis of absence of security. This is also quite, unfortunate. And for Adeleke administration to be talking about withholding of government and of allocation to local government and talking about impunity is actually crocodile tears, if I may use that word, from somebody, an administration that is steeped in impunity. This is an administration that sacked people who were legally constituted as members of the Local Government Education Authority, members of the Social Service Commission, Civil Service Commission, and all other statutory bodies established by law were sacked immediately by the Adeleke administration without any recourse to the law court. So it's an administration that has connived with certain elements within the labor union to seek to collapse the local government administration in Osun, which shows lack of respect for procedure and also rule of law. We want to implore Nigerian people to prevail on Adeleke administration to allow local government administration, which is the closest to the administration, to the people, to be able to engender better life for our people, to operate under the leadership of the APC elected local government chairmen and councillors.
All right, Dr. Basiru, I'm asking you this as not as a party man, not as APC man, but as a lawyer. So the first Court of Appeal judgment that was against the PDP, the court said, the appeal court has said whether it was far premature or one of those terms that were used. But now the relisting that was wanted by the APC in the APP case because of suspicion around want of diligent prosecution, now that that is not in favor of the APC, what is the subsisting judgment that the council should go by? Because on one hand, the APC is holding on to that of the PDP judgment that favored them. On the other hand, the PDP is holding on to this refusal to release, now saying that whatever happened at the trial court is a subsisting judgment that should be respected because it canceled the election. As a lawyer,
there's hierarchy of court in Nigeria. The Court of Appeal is higher in the hierarchy, and that is elementary, that even a year 2 students in our colleges of law will know. There's a Court of Appeal decision that set aside a judgment nullifying the election of local government chairman and councillor, which was delivered on February 10. For me, the application to release the APP case was superfluous because where there are decisions of a lower court, which is the federal court, being tied with being held on to by the PDP and the government, and you also have a Court of Appeal decision which has set aside that judgment, which has the same facts, the same law with that APP federal court decision. It stands to reason that any government that is that's ennobled by rule of law will respect the February 10 Court of Appeal decision as the subsisting decision, and that is the tenor of the opinion rendered by the Chief Law Officer of the Federation, Prince Lateef Fagbemi, that the essence of the February 10 judgment is actually to say that there is no valid challenge to the election of the local government chairmen and councillors of the APC stock. And that I stand with the decision of the Court of Appeal of February 10, and of course the opinion of a learned senior advocate and Chief Law Officer of the Federation, Prince Lateef Fagbemi, on the matter.
All right, Dr. Ajibola Basiru. So I'm sure we're okay now. Dr. Ajibola Basiru, National Secretary of the All Progressives Congress. Thank you for coming on the program. And it's not war, it's a conversation.
Of course, it's not war, and I can see that I crack more jokes than the two of you together. If you have to do a census of jokes, I think I win. That contest. This is so nice having conversation with you. Dr.
Basiru, this is a serious matter, but we thank you for coming on the program. Thank you.
Yeah, very serious matter. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get to another leg of the conversation. Join us again in just a moment. We'll be right back.